We're seeing Spurs fans across the city celebrating the victory of Victor Wembanyama this weekend. And here this morning, the San Antonio chapter of Texas high school basketball officials are looking for more referees. So we're talking about a celebration of basketball and now we're talking about high school sports. But Vice President Ron Tatch and Ruben Ramos are both here with us from the organization. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Vanessa. Thank you for having us.
And we're smiling and we're talking about because we're still excited about Wemby. But this is actually a serious concern with you guys because we're seeing a shortage of referees, and no referees, no games. Ruben, talk about what's happening. Why is that happening here?
Yeah, I think what started with the pandemic and people getting disconnected from being live and in person, particularly at sporting events, started this shortage problem. And so what we're trying to do is inspire and encourage folks to think about being a basketball official. We're all talking about Wemby coming to San Antonio, and so the game of basketball is high on everybody's radar screen. So one of the important stakeholders of the game of basketball is referees. Yeah. So Ron is an officer of the local chapter, and we are trying to put together an instructional program to inspire and encourage folks that have a passion for the game of basketball. Think about officiating.
And there's a lot in our city right now. Ron, talk about that because, you know, you have a shortage, but it's also difficult to recruit people. And you're trying to make it easy to have more people sign in, especially here in the city. Talk about that.
Absolutely, Vanessa. Because it's such a broad spectrum of different sports. And there's a lot of individuals out there who have a passion for the game. Yeah. Like I've had all my life. My dad was an official, he's a Northside coach, I'm a Northside retired elementary school principal, and we need to give back to the student athletes who work every single day, day in and day out. And not only that, this is a team effort. The coaches that provide the instruction, the motivation to get these students into the game, and also the students trying to stay with all their studies, it becomes very emotional at times. And so that emotional aspect of the game can turn into something a little bit more than just emotions. And us as officials, we need to identify how we go about attacking that and train up. So the first thing, we have to identify and understand who wants to become a referee, and we want to make sure we have an opportunity on July the 9th to share that information, how they can be part of the games they love.
And that's so fabulous. And I do want to ask Ruben one more question because, you know, we see it as a shortage, but really it's impacting our kids, right? Because they can't take the field, they can't take the court and play. So it really affects them. You know, talk about the passion behind creating this clinic and bringing more people in.
Sure. I think some people underestimate the time and effort that these young student athletes put into the game of basketball. And so we have to match that. We have to somehow get into a situation where not only are we identifying, but we're recruiting, and then more importantly, training these officials. And then how do we retain them over time? So for us, it's giving back to the game that we've been a part of all of our lives, right? And we have to keep the student athlete at the top of that in terms of how are we staying with them, because they're getting faster, they're getting stronger, they're getting quicker. We have to improve our skill set. So the journey starts with what Ron's going to be doing here in July. We're going to have an instructional presentation on what do you have to do to become a basketball referee. And then we just kind of walk them through it. And then how do we get them onto the court and start teaching them the skill?
And I love that. And we're looking at, you know, Wemby, 19 years old, you know?
Yeah.
So, Ron, tell us really quick, you know, talk about the program, especially for people that are listening and saying, I love basketball, but, ooh, I'm not sure if I could be a referee.
Well, if you have a passion for the game, there's always a place for you. You know, we have youth leagues, we have middle school, and, you know, we put our youngest officials with the youngest students, the youngest coaches, that becomes a problem, right? And so, yeah, there's always a place for somebody. And on July the 9th, we're going to give that information to those who want to get involved in any sport, actually. And we'll get them the contact information. Football season's coming up. You know, we need officials for football as well as basketball and volleyball starting. So we have all these different sports that need officials. And if you're interested in being an official in any sport, we'll be more than gladly to talk about those things too on July the 9th.
Good. So everybody, we will have a link on our website. Ron, we're almost out of time. Tell us where to go to sign up and take part in the virtual session. And I'm saying, is there any cost to that?
No cost for the information. There's no cost for the training. Our local chapter, which is the greater San Antonio area, we service all the outer San Antonio area, and there is no charge for this.
Wow, that's amazing. You guys are doing that.
GSAC.org, GSAC.org. There's a link to that website, and all you got to do is sign up, be prepared, get the information, come with questions, and our job is to facilitate those questions and answer them and see if this is something that you might want to venture into.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the granular things
Yeah.
of officiating.
And it's going to be fun, right?
Oh,
It's all
absolutely.
fun.
That's what we want to do.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining
Thanks
us
for
today.
having us.
Once again, GSAC. Sorry, I couldn't get that out. There's a virtual online register there, and July 9th is the date.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for joining
Thank you,
us.
Vanessa. Thank you so much.
All right. And stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.